do what I can.
Really?
Yeah.
I do all the time in synagogue.
Well, that should be the same. I don't know if you experienced this morning, but that was interesting too.
I what?
No.
Nah. The time is come and gone. We have so good time. Do you happen to have the water though?
All right. Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get this show started.
Oh, no,
I'm
there's
sure
one
people will
there.
be filtering in, but they can grab seats as we go. Oh, wait. I will wait 1 second.
Sorry.
You can grab
Not
some.
obedient.
So, good morning, like I said. Welcome to today's session. Protecting Jewish Communities Against Swatting and Other Anti-Semitic Threats. My name is Alex Friedfeld. I am the Associate Director of Investigative Research with the ADL Center on Extremism. And over the next hour or so, I'll be leading us through a conversation on disruptive tactics like bomb threats and swattings that are affecting our communities and what people can do to address these really important issues. We have an incredible panel lined up for all of you. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker who will be providing some introductory remarks today. Matthew Platkin is the Attorney General of New Jersey, where he leads a department that has a wide range of responsibilities, including investigating and prosecuting crimes, representing the state's interest in court, enforcing civil rights statutes, and overseeing the more than 38,000 law enforcement officers in the state. Prior to his role as Attorney General, he served as Chief Counsel to New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, where he oversaw legal matters and provided counsel on legislation, executive orders, and regulations and litigations. He holds a Bachelor of Arts from Stanford University and a Juris Doctor from Stanford Law School. So with that, I'd like to welcome Attorney General Platkin, and thank you so much for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Alex, so much for that introduction, and thank you all for being here. I want to thank the panelists, and I'm going to try not to steal your time because you guys are the ones who really know what you're talking about. It is such a privilege to be here. I have such high regard for ADL. It's such an incredible partner to our office, to me personally, and all of you. I want to thank you all for being here. This is the largest conference, I believe, on anti-Semitism in the world. And there couldn't be a more appropriate time for us to gather to address a really troubling and alarming rise of anti-Semitism, both here at home, and I say at home even though I guess you could potentially swim to my house, just across the river, but here in the United States. And this certainly is a trend that predated October 7th. This was something we've been seeing now for many years, but obviously since October, I think everyone understands how significant of a rise there's been in anti-Semitic activity of all forms, and the issues you're going to hear about on this panel, which I'll touch on briefly, are certainly among those that we've seen arise. And I have to just say, personally, this is something that I deal with as our state's chief law enforcement officer, responsible for, my department is the Department of Law and Public Safety. We are responsible for keeping the 9.3 million residents of New Jersey safe. And to me, that means a lot of things, but first and foremost, it means that people feel safe to go about their lives, however it is they choose to do so, regardless of where they're from, how they pray, what language they speak, how they look. And too many people in New Jersey and across the country are living in fear right now, particularly fear amongst the Jewish community. But I also feel this personally. I am a practicing Jew. I am raising 2 young children in the Jewish faith. My dad's here. I'm very proud. He's a volunteer with the ADL. So I grew up with this. And I got to say, somebody of my generation, I never thought I would see the types of things that I see in my job that I only heard about from my grandparents. And now we're seeing them day in and day out across this country. And I've spent time with, particularly, I have to say, what really gets me is the kids, the younger generation. And I've seen the fear that they feel. to simply identify as a Jewish student. Seen it in our K through 12 schools. I've seen it in our institutions of higher education. And we have made great strides in New Jersey to put out guidance and to form and to respond to incidents. We've also let schools know, and this is something that I think sometimes gets forgotten, that even if you create that unsafe environment, you can potentially face liability from both the state and federal government. I think our schools forgot that part, to be honest with you. So we are doing everything we can in New Jersey to keep people safe. The most important thing we need to do that is to have more people like you helping us build relationships in whatever community, and I say us, I mean me, literally, law enforcement, New Jersey, and that's true in every state and every community. It's true in New York, it's true across this country. We need to build relationships with our communities so that they trust us enough to tell us when they see something going wrong. Because it is almost never the case that the first time somebody commits a violent act, a biased violent act, anti-Semitism or otherwise, that's the first time that they've ever engaged in any kind of anti-Semitic behavior. And what really pains me is when I hear from communities and from residents in our state who say, oh, I didn't think anybody would care. You know, a swastika written on a playground, a leaflet, a slur, and they say, oh, we didn't, you know, that's just the way things go now. That's not the way things go. And by you all being here, you're raising your voice and letting people know that this isn't normal. What we're dealing with now is not normal. That we've seen this type of activity at other points in history, in this country and around the world, and it has never led to good things. That this is an extraordinary time, and we need people to stand up and make their voices heard that we will not tolerate, and we need people to tell us what's happening. Because I have seen some good things. You know, my synagogue in Bloomfield, New Jersey, where I attend, was the victim of a hate crime at the start of last year. An attempted firebomb by early one morning in January of 2023. And I've watched, as person overseeing that work, I watched the response from law enforcement to that attack. And it was tireless, diligent, fearless, and we ultimately, along with the federal government, brought the perpetrator to justice. But we did something, I think, more than that. And my rabbi has said this publicly. You know, when you look back at the really darkest times in history when anti-Semitism really took hold, one essential ingredient for that to happen was that law enforcement either turned a blind eye to it or in its worst moments was complicit in it. I didn't see that in January of 2023, and I haven't seen that in my tenure as Attorney General. Law enforcement has stood steadfast with the community to make sure that they know that our job is to keep you safe. And we will continue to do that until, I hope, one day in the not-too-distant future, where we're not gathering to talk about historic highs of anti-Semitism, but we're seeing that ugly trend recede. And what you're going to hear about today is, unfortunately, yet another modern, relatively modern, but certainly growing threat in the form of swatting and other new tactics that are emerging. People who engage in anti-Semitic behavior are clever, and they too can be tireless. And we are seeing a significant rise in swatting incidents, using the tools of law enforcement against communities that are trying to feel safe, making them in fact feel less safe, right? When law enforcement shows up at your school or your house or your office or your synagogue under a fake threat, it undermines all of the other good work that we're doing. And it makes our communities live in fear because it is so hard and frankly impossible for them to distinguish between what's a real threat and what's a fake threat. All they see is, my kids' schools had another bomb threat today. My synagogue, once again, was evacuated. And it makes law enforcement's job that much harder because we have to determine in each instance that it's not a real threat. And so you have to take it seriously. In New Jersey, swatting is a crime. It's a crime of the second degree. which is a significant crime in the state. And we are working hard to enhance penalties for that, working with ADL and others. We are taking this extremely seriously, and the folks you're going to hear from on this panel are experts on how we collectively in law enforcement, in partnership with organizations like the ADL, are tackling this problem. But I'll come back to where I started. You know, you all are leaders and ambassadors for this work. The more you tell us, the more we understand what you're seeing, the more we understand what folks on the ground are seeing, the better we can be. And most importantly, we all, and I pledge to you I will continue to do this as Attorney General, but we all need to raise our voices and not just assume that what I said I've heard too many times, that, oh, that's just how things are. I don't care if it's a social media post, and by the way, we have real issues with our social media companies too, that have not, in my opinion, lived up to their obligations under their own terms of service to combat this issue. But we all have an obligation to speak up and speak out. And when I said I haven't heard of, I never thought I'd see the things that I heard about from my grandparents. One thing I did learn from them is that when you see it, you stand up and you speak out against it. Because the minute we stop doing that is the minute we as a society will really fall victim to the horrors that this can lead to. I'm so proud to be here with you all. I'm grateful for the partnership we have with ADL, who does extraordinary work in New Jersey and across the country. And I see many of our, Tim, looking at you, I see many of our community partners here. And thank you all for being here, and thank you for what you do. And please keep the faith, because it will get better.
Thank you very much, Attorney General Platkin, for those incredibly important, insightful remarks. We'll go ahead and shift now into the panel portion of this conversation. But before I introduce, again, these incredible panelists, I'd like to take a few minutes at the top to set the stage for today's conversation. If you're familiar with the ADL's work at all, or even if you've just read the news over the last few months, you know that we are currently in an unprecedented surge of anti-Semitic activity across the U.S. In 2022, we tracked nearly 3,700 anti-Semitic incidents across the nation, the most since we started tracking this data back in 1979, and the third time in 5 years that we documented record high numbers. We're still finalizing last year's numbers, but we know that 2023 is going to once again be another record high, driven in large part by the anti-Semitic activity that we've all seen after the October 7th attacks. While unfortunately this hate is not new, it is manifesting in new and frankly unexpected ways, highlighted by the rise in bomb threats and swatting. And again, in last year, we tracked over 1,000 incidents of these types of tactics being employed against the Jewish community across the country. So just to set our definitions, right, because I'm sure everyone knows what bomb threats are, but swattings may be unfamiliar. Bomb threats are when someone makes a verbal or written threat to detonate an explosive device as a way to cause physical damage or as a means of intimidation, right, even if the device doesn't actually exist. Usually people send these things directly to the target, in order to intimidate them. In contrast, though, swatting is the deliberate or malicious act of reporting a false crime or emergency to provoke an aggressive response from law enforcement to a target's location in order to harass, intimidate, or potentially even harm the target. Rather than targeting the subject directly, the perpetrator interacts with a third party like law enforcement, like a suicide hotline, in order to trigger that aggressive reaction. Which means that the actual target often doesn't even know what's happening until law enforcement arrives on the scene. Swattings can be bomb threats, but they can also be threats of mass shootings, murder-suicides, or hostage-taking, right? So for example, you can imagine someone calling in saying, I've just committed a mass shooting at so-and-so synagogue, and I have hostages, right? With the expectation that law enforcement will obviously respond with full force and potentially intimidate or lead to some disaster at that targeted location. Both of these things are threats of horrifying violence that are weaponized against specific targets And you can imagine how terrifying, right? The fear that people must feel when their synagogue, when their congregation, when their community is targeted just for practicing their religion. On the screen, if I can find the clicker in my pocket, right? You'll see a few examples of what I'm talking about, and I know it may be difficult for folks in the back to see, but these are actually real messages that the ADL has documented. The top two are from a chat room that the ADL infiltrated last summer, where users shared videos of themselves swatting synagogues, egging each other on, and reveling in the disruptions that they were able to cause. The bottom two are threats that were part of a campaign in the winter sent to hundreds of targets across the country, warning that the sender has placed bombs in, again, various synagogues. Now, when you read the text of these messages, they can seem ridiculous and juvenile because frequently they actually are. We at the Center on Extremism spend a lot of time investigating these perpetrators. And in the cases of the messages on top, the FBI actually arrested one of the main individuals based on information that the ADL Center on Extremism provided, right, which was a big win. But what we learned from that was that the person who was doing this, that was disrupting synagogues across the country, was a juvenile. They were a kid, right? Now, obviously, there's something very alarming about a kid feeling, that is necessary to engage in hate in this way and act out and target various communities, but that's an issue for another day. What I think is important about this is that it shows that, frequently in these cases, we're not necessarily dealing with criminal masterminds. Instead, what we're dealing with are people who are using the simple means at their disposal to spread fear for their own entertainment. Now, all that said, regardless of how ridiculous many of these messages may be, the unfortunate truth is that, if the last few years have taught us anything, is that the Jewish community does not have the luxury of taking these threats lightly, and that there are very real threats out there. These are all very difficult, complicated issues that directly impact our communities. And I hope by the end of this session, all of you will not only understand the impacts of these issues, but also have some takeaways of what you can do to address them. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our three panelists. On my left, I have Rabbi Rachel Steiner, who is the senior rabbi at Barnert Temple in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. Next to her, we have Ariella Loewenstein, who is the Deputy Regional Director for our ADL office in Los Angeles. And finally, we have Rebecca Weiner, the Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism with the New York Police Department. Thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it. So I'd like to start with you, Rabbi. In December, Barnert Temple received a bomb threat that resulted in around 100 children and staff being evacuated. Could you please tell us about that day and what you experienced?
Sure. So good afternoon. I think it's just noon, everyone. So actually, I wanted to say I'm staring at Tim Terrell's face, and it's a great face to see. We received many emails from Tim Terrell and Secure Community Network, and I'll say everything that we were able to do as a result of that day, I know we're going to get to it later, is in part because of the tremendous support and training that we have in our larger community. So it was a Sunday morning in December. We have about 100 kindergarten through 6th graders in our building on Sunday mornings, and then maybe another dozen teenagers who are student teachers and our faculty and clergy and staff. And we had just finished our morning tefillah, and the kids were heading back to their classes. And we got a call from our lay leader who runs our security, who's our volunteer security person who directs all of our stuff, to our school director, that we had received a bomb threat by email, and it had come actually through our office manager. And quickly, he and our school director and I determined that we needed to leave the building. It's this event that you're speaking about in December. In advance of this, we had spent a lot of time preparing for what we would do if we had to evacuate quickly. So we had already located and practiced evacuating with the staff to an off-site location that was a bit of a walk away. And since we had lots of children, we couldn't all just get in our cars and drive. And I will say many of those kids are 5 years old, right? So we quickly, sort of the adults got on the loudspeakers and the walkie-talkies, and we asked everybody to sort of get into our evacuation mode. I think the kids understood that the tone in the voice was not the regular, we're doing a drill, kind of, we're leaving the building. So everyone left their jackets, it was cold, and their backpacks, and we headed out. And I'm not going to tell you where we went because that's against security protocol, but we did leave. And I'll just say the walk is a walk that you would never do based on where we had to walk if you weren't doing this evacuation, right? It's not like we went into the neighborhood and went to Starbucks. And because we had practiced, the staff, I stayed back actually at the beginning to make sure everybody left. I checked in with our security guards. The police came, and we called the security at the place where we were set to evacuate. And again, only the senior staff and the full-time staff people had practiced this drill. We never actually practiced it with the kids because we were going to another location where there are, where there's a business. So we went, and it was actually very successful. I think the kids were some version of either entertained or terrified, depending on who the child was. It was about a 10-minute walk to where we had to go. And you could imagine that many of the sixth graders had cell phones. And so by the time we got to where we were going, I was already getting text messages. I joined them once everybody was out from parents whose kids were there. So in addition to making sure that our children were safe, we also had parents trying to show up to get their kid before they even knew where we actually were, right? So there's a million things that are happening at the same time. And from there, we had to wait for about an hour and a half until the building was totally secured and until we could then notify the parents about where we were and what had happened. And we had parents come pick up at our evacuation location rather than walking everybody back to the synagogue. Many of the parents were terrified when they came for their kids. I will say the kids, at that point, they knew they were safe because they were with us, right? And even if they had been nervous and there were a couple of teary fifth and sixth graders, they were playing games in an auditorium. They were with their rabbis and their educators and their teachers and their amazing teenagers who totally held it together and then broke down later that day. But the parents were terrified, I will tell you, when they came for their kids because they didn't know what they were coming to. And they were picking up, many of them, 5-year-olds who had just done this whole walk across a highway to get to an evacuation location. So that was the day. And then from there was a lot of sort of updated communication. What did we learn? We did a lot of debriefing as a staff with our security team, with our security guards. And I will share also that my children go to a public school where about, let's say, 10 other kids go. And it happened that the next day there was a scheduled drill, right? And so you get an email from the school that says, by the law requires that we're going to tell you now, we had a drill today. So about 10 kids had an actual bomb scare evacuation. And then they did a drill the next day for a bomb threat. So I called the principal and I said, just do me a favor and check in on these 10 kids because we had a real bomb threat where the kids actually did have to evacuate yesterday. And so think about how it all played out. It's not just that the day went well, but the ripple effect into what happened with all of those different students and teenagers and staff sort of continues on. So.
Thank you. Ariella, you work with out of our Los Angeles office, right? And many of the communities that you work with have been affected by bomb threats, by swattings that experience the trauma and the difficulties that Rabbi Steiner just described, right? So how does the ADL work with those communities and those issues at a local level?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's a very long drive from Los Angeles, I'll tell you that. So ADL in Los Angeles has a role of playing an intermediary between law enforcement and the Jewish community. Actually, law enforcement in many other communities, not just the Jewish community. But in this case, we actually were getting swatting calls on Shabbat, on Saturdays. They were coming through, and our phenomenal colleagues at the Center on Extremism would reach out to us directly to let us know that there actually was a call going on at that moment and to try to reach law enforcement in order to tell them that it may have been a swatting call or a fake bomb threat. Law enforcement became very aware of what was going on very early on because they had seen it all before, and they knew exactly how to act, and they had to respond, right? They have to respond, because if it's real, then we've got issues. But they have to respond, but the response was to send people out first to assess the situation. And then if they actually did need, like, the SWAT team or the bomb, the bomb squad, they would call those people out, and that never happened. So my job is to let the Jewish community know that law enforcement is dealing with it in the way that they need to deal with it. And sometimes that means that they're not going to hear from law enforcement everything that happened or all of their tactics, because law enforcement also likes to keep, things secret, like the location where you evacuated to. So really what we do is we talk to the synagogue, and we inform them that it may be a swatting call or a fake bomb threat that they're receiving. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have to do what Rabbi Steiner did, which is evacuate, right? And so one of the biggest synagogues, very large synagogue, has had 3 swatting calls. And they have a day school and an early childhood center. So you can imagine the amount of people that need to evacuate every single time they get a bomb threat. But by the time they got the first bomb threat and they had evacuated, the executive director, I was speaking to the executive director, and he said to me, well, law enforcement told me that it would take an extra hour because for the dogs to go through the building, right? The bomb dogs. And he said, and I don't know exactly what to do. I have all of these kids sitting out in the. Now, we don't have inclement weather like New Jersey. So we are lucky in that sense that we have where we can sit outside for most of the year. Not now, by the way, it's raining very hard. But for most of the year, we can sit outside and not have a problem. But to hold them, 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 6th graders, all of those kids, for an extra hour, he was trying to decide what to do. And so finally I said to him, and I called him by his first name, and I said, Matthew, I said, what does your gut tell you to do? And he says, to send the bomb dogs through. And I said, then you do that. And you do it as many times as you feel you need to send them through that building, right? We don't want them to be afraid, but we want law enforcement to be able to do their jobs, right? And to clear the situation. This was actually very serious because they had construction going on, so people were in and out of the location, even though it's very, very secured. They were in and out of the location, so that was a concern, right? That they had dropped, that they had actually put a backpack where they said they did. So our job really is to ensure that the community is safe, to let them know that we then are working with law enforcement, and then also that our Center on Extremism is doing a deep dive into figuring out who these individuals are. And so that is really how we work in the community.
Amazing, thank you very much. Rebecca, obviously law enforcement has an incredibly important role in responding to these kinds of threats. Can you talk about how law enforcement views and responds to these issues? What support do they provide to communities in their moment of need?
Sure, and good afternoon, everybody. And I just have to start off with a little bit of a shout out to our moderator here, and it's gonna come into play as I describe a little bit the law enforcement role. And it's so nice that we're all sitting together in order of these perimeters, nested perimeters of involvement in this. To Alex, our moderator, who used to work at the NYPD Intelligence Bureau as one of our star brilliant analysts and is now moved over to ADL and has been here for 5 years, applying the same kind of commitment to understanding threats to ADL that he did to NYPD. And that is really what this is all about, because these are challenges and threats that require what's often called a whole of society response to deal with. And I have to say that ADL Center on Extremism has been an invaluable partner to us in flagging threats, in starting cases, in helping our analytic cadre, our operational counterparts, our investigators, understand these challenges. Swatting is not new. It has been around for quite some time. It is a response to, right now, I think, 3 overlapping issues. And Alex flagged 2 of them, and then I'll mention the third before we think through what the law enforcement role is, the responding to the threat immediately, but not just that. So we've got the youth issue. Swatting has become part of the tool book of younger people, many of whom, alienated during the pandemic, are engaging in this kind of trolling behavior. And there has been a huge focus on Jewish institution, houses of worship, schools, but that's not exclusive. The swatting trend that is afflicting a lot of young people, and we're coming across kids who are 12, 13, 14 in our investigations around the world, by the way, not just in the United States. Kids are doing this for fun, for a lark, and need to understand consequences. And for law enforcement, that can be challenging. For prosecutors, that can be challenging, especially at the federal level. So this is part of the cultural norms of youth that are really problematic, and a lot of different areas that we could focus on in terms of the youth element. And then there's the normalization and mainstreaming and metastasization of anti-Semitism that is bringing everybody to this conference this week. And that's an issue that clearly predates 10/7. It goes way back in time in history, unfortunately, but we see an uptick over the last 2 years in the New York City area, and again, talking to our law enforcement partners across the country and around the world in anti-Semitism. And post 10/7, another real inflection point in using this particular tactic to instill the kind of fear that you just heard so compellingly described. And the third part, and this is the reason that I think this unfortunate modality of swatting is here with us for some time, is technology. It has become quite easy to do this at cost and at scale. And even if you are a 13 or a 14-year-old, it is quite easy to technically overlay the sounds of gunfire and screaming onto your 911 call or your suicide hotline awareness call. And you can do this using large language models. We have been tracking, in particular, generative artificial intelligence as a driver of some of these tactics and techniques. So the technology piece mapped onto the political and hate proliferation piece, focusing on the anti-Semitism issue, plus the youth, make this a really volatile context. So what are we doing? And there's 4 real elements of the law enforcement response that I think are worth flagging. The first is the operational one, and it's the one that you all will be seeing when you are hopefully not. Actually, it's a question for the room. How many people in this room have had a direct experience with swatting or know others who have? Okay, so quite a number of you, and probably that's why you are interested in this conversation, but that's, I think, a chilling reminder of how pervasive this has become. So that is our 911 operators who are receiving the call, or the suicide hotline operators who are receiving the call. That is our patrol, so NYPD, our patrol will respond, our emergency services unit might respond, bomb squad, our own counterterrorism division personnel may respond. You will have seen those men and women outside of the perimeter of this event. That's the operational response. And it is really important, and part of our job as the Intelligence and Counterterrorism Bureau has been educating the rest of our department about the proliferation of this tactic, making sure they're aware when a campaign of swatting is ongoing. And we do see these in bursts and campaigns organized, certainly over the last 5 months, around Shabbat, to really focus resources on instilling the most fear and intimidation and harassment. So when a campaign is ongoing, really important that ADL, that SCN, that CSI, all of the other elements who are in this fight with us are flagging it to us, that we are flagging it to patrol, so that we can have the calibrated response that you both were talking about. Also really important, and something we encourage our partners all the time, is that there be a plan. Rabbi, you mentioned you had a plan. You already knew what you were going to do. So that conversation that is happening at the perimeter of the incident, before the incident, becomes really important, and that partnership. So the operational response is the part you see. But then that usually is either the product of or instigates another two elements of something that's really important. And one is investigative, and the second is intelligence, and those are separate. Any instance of swatting is going to generate an investigation, and it often leads us into territory that we would not necessarily have anticipated. We've had a number of ongoing cases. We work our own cases. We work collectively with the FBI, with other partners in the region, and again across the country on these cases. And we have found that the individuals who are engaging in these tactics often are engaging in a range of other pathological and sometimes criminal behavior. So each one gives us some really important breadcrumbs that we can follow to, hopefully, a really significant disruption. So swatting is a consequence of often a radicalization that is happening quite beyond the specifics of the incident. So investigatively, really important. And from an intelligence perspective, these cases have shown us a lot about what's happening at the level of threat around the world. A couple of things that have been surprising to me: very local attention to services that are being live streamed in a particular place is being paid by individuals who might be in other countries, who have really no nexus to the jurisdiction at all. That's really interesting. How are they finding out? How are they making their selections? Often it's about what's being live streamed. How are they communicating as a network? So for us, that can be really helpful to understanding with an eye toward mitigating the challenges. And the last element of our response is the partnership, and that really is the first element of our response and the most important. Because these are communities being affected. It is a product of great planning and good communication and conversation that we're able to minimize the disruption when we can. We are always going to have to respond, and everybody wants us to respond, because God forbid it wasn't a swatting call and it was an actual bomb threat. So we will be responding. But minimizing the harm is a plan that's in place and people know what they're going to do. It is law enforcement sometimes, or private security at places, houses of worship, in schools, knowing that we're going to send an advanced team to have the kinds of conversations that you're describing, so that people may have an hour taken out of their day in a way that they hadn't intended, but hopefully don't feel scarred, don't feel that sense of fear, and can be resilient without being complacent about the actual threat. And that's, I think, beyond anything else, what is the most important. So we really rely on you, is the takeaway. We rely on you, and we promise you that we will absolutely mitigate any actual kinetic threats, but important to have the conversation to minimize also the psychological threat, which is, of course, the whole point of the swatting to begin with.
Great, thank you. You mentioned the scars, and I think that's really important, because I think when people think about bomb threats, right, there's almost like the idea that this is one specific moment in time, it's an incident. But the fact is, right, we've heard it from multiple different people, this continues to resonate throughout time, the days, weeks, months to come. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about those, and this is open for the whole panel, feel free to dive in, right? How that manifests and like what you've done to try and combat that to bring about the healing that Rebecca was talking about.
I'll say, I think for us, communication with our community has been really important. We had our kids obviously leave all their stuff and our staff at the synagogue when we had to evacuate, and so one thing we in addition to communicating to the whole congregation, we also made sure that all of the students who had left things that day were asked to come back to the building to get them either that afternoon or within the first few days, in part because we had a sense that, especially for the children and parents that were afraid that walking back into the building, and it was about to be winter break, I should say, we didn't want them to wait like 2 weeks to come back. We had a sense that that was going to cause more fear if there was too long a wait to sort of re-enter the building, so that was important. A lot of checking in with parents and a lot of sort of updating what we had learned and reassuring people, that we were also learning and working on our protocol. Also, leading into the high holidays, when I was expecting to be swatted because of what was happening around that time, I think I spent more time keeping an eye on my doors than I did and I ever have before, looking for the ushers who I knew were like set to flag me if we had to leave. I brought my keys onto the bima. I mean, there's like all kinds of like small things I think we do, and then there's the sort of outward community outreach that we do, and all of it's important. I will just say personally, I never go to the synagogue in shoes I can't run in anymore, and that is also because I don't care to wear high heels, so that works easily for me. But when my kids say to me, my personal like biological children, "Mom, can I wear Crocs to Hebrew school today?" I say no. So it's a little dark, but it's part of my own preparation and part of the way that sort of helps me keep peace with being there and being ready for all the plans that we do have in place.
I think the impact, people forget that ADL actually, we're part of the community, we're in the community, and that we are treated as first responders even though we are not first responders. So I think a lot of the times there's an impact on the place that was swatted, and then there's an impact on ADLers, right? And if we can't get to it in time, it's very nerve-wracking if we can't get to the synagogue in time because they're in services and we don't want to disrupt them. So I think that there's two components to the aftermath. That the one is the ADL response, one is ADL's personnel, which need to be taken very seriously because there's a double trauma going on there, right? The trauma of working for ADL during this time, and then the trauma of also having children in the community where these bomb threats are happening, right? So I have 2 young children, and luckily I do not believe the synagogue we belong to has been swatted, but all I think about is the fact that when there's an emergency that I need to respond to, will I then be able to also get to my children, right? And so there's a lot of things going on that people don't think about, but they treat us as first responders even though we are not first responders. The other issue is the trauma to the community and how many people will call us and say, well, I don't want to go to synagogue, right? I don't want to take my kids to school, right? And obviously, validating their feelings is important, but also reminding them that, we as a community are resilient. We're also very protected by law enforcement. My former regional director used to say that, during the Holocaust, law enforcement would run away from the fire, right? Now they run into the fire. Right? They're running in to save us, they're running in to help us, they're running in to risk their lives for us, right? And so we have to also remember that. And I think speaking openly about it with the kids, depending, age appropriate, obviously. We have curriculum on how to deal in the aftermath of hate, right? And talking to them openly about it, not in a scary way. I always say, we give information not to scare, but to empower. And so we want to use that information as a way to empower them to understand that, yes, this is something that's very dangerous, but also, yes, you're protected. We are protecting you. So that's where it sits.
I think, 2 elements to really focus on for us. One is intelligence sharing, and the other is the constant communication that we have as a department, all aspects of our department. There's the community affairs piece, which is really important, forging great relationships to the large multiplicity of communities in this city and beyond. We've got in this room a number of the folks from our team who are doing the work of making sure we can respond to an incident in progress for sure, but making sure that the aftermath and the beforehand are as cohesive and calm and constructive as possible. So our NYPD Shield program has put up a lot of information that's accessible to all of you. For more information on swatting and other issues, you can certainly find that. And FBI, NCTC, DHS have put out a lot of focused information on this trend, among others. So that's intelligence that you can consume, as well as all of the resources that you have at your disposal through ADL. But really important to have ongoing lines of communication with either your local precinct, with our, for those of you who are local, Intelligence and Counterterrorism Bureau folks who are really out engaging in the community, and the rest of our Community Affairs Bureau. Law enforcement is playing an ongoing role in this particular issue. It's not just responding to the incident in progress. And the more that that dialogue is developed between security directors and our own personnel, the better off we all are down the road.
Great, thank you. Before we open it up to Q&A, I want to ask one more question because obviously we spent a lot of time talking about the horrors of these tactics, and I think it's really important for folks to understand, what they can do to combat this. So if we can just go down the line and just one thing, right? One piece of advice or recommendation for people here to protect themselves, protect their families, protect their communities when it comes to these types of tactics.
Definitely have a plan for what you're going to do and practice it.
I would say report to law enforcement, report to the ADL. I can't tell you how many swatting calls have come in that we did not know about because the synagogue did not report them. Or the institution did not report them to law enforcement, to ADL. We had to find out about it in some third-party manner of getting that information. So please report, and do not feel like you are wasting their time, right? You are not, right? They're here to protect us, right? Anything that you feel like you need to report. They'll decide if it's something that they need to investigate, not you. Right? So report is very important. Report to law enforcement, reporting to ADL because we take those reports in as well. But first law enforcement, first 911, and then ADL would hopefully be your next call. So that's my takeaway.
I agree with both of those things. And the third one, which is the hardest, is, and I was asked this question so much, certainly in October, but really for the last 5 months. And I also have 2 young children. So try to stay calm because, of course, the whole point of this is to terrorize. And so we have a collective responsibility to not let that happen. And you do that by knowing that you've got law enforcement there to protect you, that this is a known entity, that this is something that is a really unfortunate byproduct of the moment we're living in, but one that we collectively can get through with no problem. And so the staying calm and resilient part of the equation is really important, and it's an important message to convey to those kids who, whether it's at synagogue or just in the course of their school, are having active shooter drills and doing a lot that could make them feel very fearful about their world. So for us to be able to calmly explain that this is something they can navigate with strength, and we wish they didn't have to, but we can get through it together, becomes very important.
Thank you. Emily, I think we have any? So if you would like, you can submit questions through our app. You can tap on the session and write them in. Otherwise, we do it the old-fashioned way as well. If anyone has, we can write them down.
Hand.
Do we have any on there? Okay, so let's just do hands. I saw yours first.
What are you doing to these young people that you capture, and what is the inflammatory materials that they're seeing, and how can we address that? Because to hear teenagers are doing this is very
an excellent point. And again, that creates challenges for law enforcement. It creates challenges for prosecutors, especially at the federal level. So while this is criminal behavior and a lot of different criminal charges can apply, prosecuting a 13 or a 14-year-old often doesn't make sense. And so you need to create an environment where there is a consequence to the behavior, and one that we can, as a criminal justice system, address it in a way that is productive. So it's a combination of criminal charges, often at the state level, but sometimes at the federal level when applicable. Some very stern engagement with law enforcement. And this is, by the way, not just a conversation about swatting. This is a conversation about radicalization to violence generally, where we have observed younger and younger individuals who are mobilizing toward violence, which is problematic. And it's also something that we're seeing in the world of day-to-day ordinary crime. So our young people are telling us something, and we need to be listening, and we need to be making sure that we can help redirect people, if possible, into a more salubrious path. But if not, make sure that there are some consequences. So it can be arrest, it can be prosecution, it can be discussions with law enforcement, it can be removing the devices which enable this to take place, right? So seizing the actual elements of the criminal activity. And then it can be the ineffectiveness of the strategy, right? The smarter we are all about making sure that they're not seeing the SWAT team responding and creating a lot of chaos, the less enticing it is as a tactic. Knowledge that their network members, that their peers are experiencing consequences of this behavior becomes a disinhibitor. Finding the non-children in a network, the non-minors, and of course it's not all minors, but just your question dealt with minors, finding those who are of age and making sure that they're prosecuted and disrupting networks can be really helpful. And I could go on for hours about the impact of social media and how, radicalizing for young people, it's quite easy to consume a lot of material, and you saw some of it, that leads you into dark places, and we have to also deal with that, and that is another story for another conference.
Thank you.
He has the microphone, so he's.
We've got one here. Okay, so we've got a question here, and then we'll take one more after this. Rebecca, Rebecca, the question is, can you speak to the cybersecurity component? Rebecca mentioned using AI to fake the sounds of an event, but what about tracking activity online and keeping synagogues safe online?
So, as I mentioned, breadcrumbs, a lot of these incidents allow investigators to trace back to identify people, and that's often hard. That requires time, it requires resources. As some of our experts in the room who work in our bureau can tell you, there's a lot of onion layer peeling back that is required to get to an individual or a network who's responsible for this activity. So there's that. And then there's I think your question gets at how can you protect synagogues with good cybersecurity practices. And the live streaming issue is complicated, and that was amplified, like many other issues we deal with currently in society, by the pandemic and the need to live stream. And so the more you are live streaming, the more you are vulnerable, and you need to make sure that you know who is signing on to your live streams. And you need to make sure that you are, as an organization, exhibiting good cyber practice, so that if somebody does try to interfere, and it can be swatting, it can be other means of disrupting a live stream, you will have the ability to investigate, but hopefully you will have a secure enough digital perimeter that intrusion cannot happen in the first place. So in addition to your physical security plan, especially for those of you who are doing things with technology, you should also have a digital security plan.
Rabbi, any thoughts about protecting online?
Well, this might, so during the high holidays, after a lot of our a couple of my colleagues had swatting incidents at their synagogues, we had to decide very quickly whether we were going to put our live streamed service up with a password or not, which is not a Zoom service, right? It's like a one-directional live stream. And we actually decided not to. We did have the congregants and both just people who are always home and who are in our security volunteer group monitoring the chat. There's no way to share a screen. It was really just what would go in the chat. We decided not to for a lot of reasons that don't matter here, but I share that because it's like it's a sort of push and pull, right? And everything that we do that is Zoomed is up only with a password protection in our website. You have to log in to get to the Zoom link, all those things. Our Shabbat and holiday services are publicly accessible through our website. And so that we had a lot of quick, intense conversation about that, and we left it that way, knowing that we were making that decision and putting in place the other pieces so that somebody was keeping an eye on it. So
We're right in an hour, so let's do one more question.
He,
a quick one.
he was waving his arm.
He has a
We've got
mic,
person
that's
waiting.
all.
Is that just from the mic? Oh, okay. Yes, let's take it back there for the last question.
Hi there. I actually also had a question related to the live streaming risks. In my community, we had the idea, and we heard that one of the reasons people are swatting more if they're live streaming is they like the satisfaction of watching on the stream as the congregation gets up and walks out and everything's interrupted. So our synagogue actually zoomed in our cameras, so now you can't see the congregation, you can only see the bima. So it might be less fun to swat at this congregation where you don't get to see everybody get up and walk out. I wonder if you know if that is a tactic that works, if there's any data around less incidents, if it's a zoomed in live stream or not, and any comments?
I mean, I can tell you. I have. So actually, it doesn't really matter, right? Because there have been BIMAs that have been shown where I see now the SWAT team coming across the BIMA because they have evacuated the building and now they're doing their sweep. So, when I have conversations with LAPD, which is the organization I most work with on this, there was a question of maybe doing a delay, right? So it's not live stream, it's live-ish stream, right? like the award shows, right? There's got to be a delay. So that was one of the conversations to be had. The other one was, actually really sitting down and thinking, do we now need to stop live streaming? And I think that that's the wrong answer, but a lot of synagogues went through the conversation of, maybe we just need to go back to what was pre-COVID. But again, you're missing a lot of members then if you don't live stream. So I think there's definitely a push and pull on both. But one of the ideas that came out of that was maybe there should be some sort of a delay on it so that they can control what people are seeing.
I'll just add, which isn't a law enforcement answer, obviously, but for our big services, the company we use to do our live streaming has the option to do a static service or an operated service. So we typically have an operated service on Shabbat and also during the high holy days. And just like we were in touch with our law enforcement and all of the other security people we worked with, we were also in touch with the people who were operating our cameras to let them know what we were looking out for and what we were concerned about, so that if there were a problem, they would know to shut it off immediately rather than waiting for something else. So that was another line of communication that we also established, particularly then, but that we reconnect about. So
That's you.
And that's time. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for our amazing panelists. So appreciate you taking the time. See you next time.